If you like Tom Clancy thrillers, if you like, um, oh, uh, Follett, I'm a big fan of Louise Penny, who writes the Gamache mysteries. I love the way she paints characters and gives the interior lives of folks. And she's just wonderful use of the English language. If you like thrillers, with political thrillers, with lots of action, I had a friend of mine read it who, in his review, said, I couldn't put it down. I tend to not really like violence, but in spite of that, I couldn't put it down anyway, and had to had to read it anyhow. So there's if you like a good thriller, this I think feeds the need. And based on some of the reviews I'm getting, I'm actually blown away that what people are saying. Some people compared it to Tom Clancy, said it's very much like Tom Clancy. Someone compared it to another novel. The writers just escapes my mind right now. Another well-known author, has that same kind of intrigue and somebody said it gave him nightmares.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. I have a book in my hand, which I love, Lights Out. It's a gorgeous book, and you can, for those listening, that's it right there. Richard is on the podcast. Richard has written an amazing book. My wife and I are battling for control of the book because we're both enjoying it at the same time. So that's causing some interesting conversations in the house. But Richard's here on the podcast. He is going to paint with a broad stroke and lots of colors and bring light to our podcast today as an artist and an author. And I'm excited to have Richard here on the podcast. You're going to love this guy, and you're going to love Lights Out, the new book from Richard, and more books coming in the future. Richard, welcome to Living the Next Chapter.
Well, thank you so much, Dave. It's delightful to be here. I really am looking forward to the next chunk of time to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
All right. Okay. Well, you've signed up. You're here. We're going to get the most out of you in our time together. I'm excited to have you here. Richard, tell everybody where you are in this big world of ours.
I currently live in Chicago, or actually west of Chicago, in a suburb called the Fox River Valley. And I'm originally, though, from Boston, born and raised in Boston. I moved out here actually 20 years ago now. I'll eventually be going back to New England. I'm a New Englander at heart, so probably in the next 2 or 3 years or so.
Awesome. Your journey as an author. I know we talked about that you do painting, you do a lot of different stuff. You're really good with all things to do with advertising and marketing. That's kind of part of your big chunk of your background. Yep. The idea of writing a book, though, like, did somebody come up to you one day, tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, Richard, you should be an author? Like, how did this all start for you?
Well, it started, I've had a number of ideas for stories kind of rattling around in my head for a while. I had a list. I think there's maybe 8 or 10 ideas. I have written a couple of screenplays and thought that the story ideas could be screenplays. Some of them I thought, well, to do this justice, it would have to be a novel. But honestly, the idea of writing a novel seemed so overwhelming to me. Even though I have spent the last now 4 decades writing for a living, writing advertising copy and blog posts and radio and video, scripts and all of that, the novel just seemed very overwhelming. So about 1.5 years ago, I was between jobs and said, you know what? I have some time. Let's give it a go. And I was hooked. It really poured out of me. In 4 months, I think I got 80% of it written. So it was just the book, as you'll see, it moves quickly. It came out the same way. One of the things that I'm really grateful for is that 4 decades of writing experience, because that sort of informed. I didn't have to think about mechanics. I didn't have to think about structure. I didn't have to think about, grammar and the things that can hang up a lot of, perhaps newer writers. And I think I had discovered my own voice some time ago. So there was this comfort in writing it. And then I had to put it down for actually 2 years because I took on 2 full-time jobs that really owned me. And then about a year and a half or so ago, I picked it up again and then finished it. And it took me another probably 3 or 4 months to finish it, polish it, get it to to where I felt it was done. And then was very fortunate to have submitted the manuscript to Double Dagger Books, and they said, "Let's go." Yeah, I mean, I spent probably 4 or 5, 6 months trying to get an agent there, and also applying, or submitting to. There are a number of publishers who, like Double Dagger, will look at authors directly without an agent. And the process is a lot like looking for a job. You put all this material together, you write a cover letter, you send them a synopsis, you send them, sometimes they want the first 50 pages, or the first 3 chapters, and then every single one of them, particularly the agents, will tell you, if you don't hear from us within 3 or 4 months, it means no. So you don't even get the courtesy of any kind of response, and usually you hear nothing. So you're, and I'm sure that there are a lot of authors out there who will be basically telling you the same story.
Interesting. So, okay, so Richard, for a new author that's listening, they're on the beginning of their journey. I have your book. I have proof. You did it. Like it's here in my hand. So you know stuff about writing now that you didn't know before you started this project. And there's people listening here today that are anxious and eager to be where you are, to have their hands on their book like you can. What have you learned about yourself in the process of writing this that could help another author and encourage them on their journey?
What I do, basically, because of what I've done for a living in advertising, marketing, and fundraising writing, I have a tendency to really lean into research. So I really didn't know much at all about the publishing industry. So I started really digging in, looking at, people in the industry. Jane Friedman is a woman who has a wonderful blog post, lots of great information about the industry. There's a lot of great stuff out there that talks about the business of publishing, what publishers are looking for, what agents are looking for. And so that can help inform you. Otherwise, there really is no getting around the fact that you have to do the writing. And writing, to me, is a skill set that's like a muscle. The more you do it, the stronger it gets. I found that to be the case with painting too. I didn't go to college for painting or for writing. It's something that I have just done on my own. And that really is the bottom line for anybody who will, even those who are educated, will tell you, or educated in the arena or the topic or the venue that you want to work in, they'll tell you that you work every day. I remember back in Boston, I was talking to a very well-known painter. He just had a great reputation. And I told him, because he came to one of my gallery shows and he said, "I love to work." I said, "Well, I'm self-taught." And I know, he had an advanced degree, and he says, "Actually, we're all self-taught." But it comes right down to it, because you have to do the work. So any new author, It's that simple. You just have to write, keep writing. Sometimes it doesn't matter what you write. If you can, I know that, there are a lot of venues for folks. You can write blog posts. You can put stuff on, you just put stuff out there and get feedback. There are a lot of writing groups. I haven't joined one, but I understand from a lot of folks, it can be very helpful to get together with some other writers, submit stuff. Working to a deadline, I find very helpful. And I think a writer's group would help you do that. I spent, as I said, 4 decades writing to a deadline. I had to get done what I had to get done because it needed to go out. The ad needed to be placed. The direct mail letter needed to go in the mail. And so that discipline for me has really helped. Creativity is something that you can never just wait for inspiration. You show up, start doing the work, and the inspiration will come. It's the other way around. I know too many folks just like, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling creative. Well, you'll be surprised. You start to put your pen to paper or your fingers to the keyboard, and even if you start to write gobbledygook, you'll find that the more you do it, the more your brain will kick in and the creativity will kick in. It's kind of the same way with painting. You start with the blank canvas, you do something, and then it says, now I want this. And so you do that. And so you begin to have a dialogue with the work. I find the same thing is true with writing. I know a lot of writers really enjoy flushing everything out, having a complete outline. I tend to I know where I want it to go. I kind of know where I wanted it to end. And I knew some of what I wanted to happen in the middle or throughout, but I was discovering what was happening next as I was writing. And that to me is the joy of the process. I think any creative endeavor, the finished work is kind of nice, but it really is about the process. That's what excites any creative person in any medium. It's about engaging with the work, solving these problems, and having this thing when you're done. You're like, wow, let's do it again.
There's some parallels between your artwork and author and writing as an author. You talked a little bit in our pre-chat a while back about just your interaction with the canvas and what's happening during the painting. Can you unpack that again and kind of expand on that for people who didn't hear that part of our conversation? Because I thought it was really unique.
When you paint, you do something to the canvas, and it sort of says, now I want this. And so you do that, and you actually begin to have a dialogue with the work. And it, to me, was a bit of a surprise when I found as I'm writing this novel, that same process was happening. I would do this, I would write this, and it was like, now this, this needs to happen next, or this person needs to say this. And it was this, I found an incredible likeness. It was almost identical in the process to painting for me. And then I was enamored, with that. And once I really discovered that, it was easy for me to get into zone, to just trust that I'm going to start to write and something's going to happen and I'll know what needs to happen next. Same thing because I've been painting for about 35 years. When I get to a canvas, the blank canvas doesn't frighten me. It excites me, actually. And so I know that if I'm going to do something, there's enough experience to know that even if I screw it up, what's the worst that can happen? I can cover it with gesso, or I can get another sheet of paper, right? And knowing that there is nothing really to fear, because fear does stop a lot of people from any creative effort. And to just let go of that and just to trust that your instincts, your experience, and I will say that, for any creative endeavor, they talk about the 10,000 hours of practice to get to anything. There is no substitute for acquiring the skills that are required to do it. You got to put the time in. If you want to paint every day. You want to write every day. If you want to sculpt, you sculpt every day. There's just no substitute for learning your craft, building that skill set, and then once you've got the tools, you can then unleash the tools to kind of do what you feel led to do.
I like that. And I like the layers when you paint, and I like the depth and all the things that are happening in painting as well, which all kind of adds to the story that you're painting. And there's all that layers and depth as a writer.
Exactly.
As well.
And also what I've found, because what I do because I paint abstract, texture is a big part of what I do. I've also found that removing layers of paint can create a textural effect. If I've got a number of layers, I can go in and I do this with steel wool and remove some layers, and it reveals something underneath. And it's because I've built texture. It's kind of an uneven process. So I would say that in the writing process, sometimes you'll do the same. You'll remove things and leave things to the reader's imagination. You don't have to spell everything out explicitly. You can leave some things. So adding paint, removing paint, adding words, removing words,
There's a nice parallel here. I like this. We're having two conversations at the same time. It's the art painting podcast and it's the author podcast, all in one, everyone. So there you go. Okay, so take us into the story, Richard, because I want to switch over to the readers who may or may not be authors in the future, but they're looking to fall in love with their next favorite author, which would be you, and they're going to fall in love with Lights Out. Give us an overview of what are we going to find in this story? I'm holding the book. I'm ready to read it for the first time as a listener. What's your love letter to me as a reader? What do I need to know about this amazing book?
Well, the idea for it started as an idea about a decade ago. One of my younger brothers lives in Massachusetts. He lives on Cape Cod, and he was volunteering to restore a lighthouse there. And he called me up. He said, I know you're good at research. We need to have the light that's at the top. It currently only goes out 3 miles. When it was originally built, the light went out 13 miles. We'd like to restore it to its original 13-mile distance. Are there companies out there that still make these things? And I'm like, I'll check. And so I did. I started researching to find actually that there are more lighthouses here on the Great Lakes than on either coast, and companies here in the Midwest that actually do, build lights. All of them are solar powered now. So I gave them the name of a couple of companies. That's what's kind of started the idea. The way my mind works anyway is, lighthouses, they are these wonderful things. They're guides for sailors. The foghorn, kind of is a voice in the mist and the darkness. What would happen? How could somebody do something bad with a lighthouse? So that's kind of was the impetus. So my antagonist uses lighthouses for destructive purposes. He shoots missiles from them and it causes some destruction with them. My protagonist is a woman. initially, when I got this idea, I was gonna make my protagonist a man, and have special forces guy, and in the CIA and all of this. And I said, you know what? I actually think I could have more fun if this was a woman. Now, I'm a father of 3 adult daughters, and I've been married for over 50 years. So I think I have a pretty good idea of how women think and how they might react in a situation. And in many cases, I've discovered that women are actually tougher than men. And so I made my protagonist a woman, Eve Tian, who was from Quebec, which is actually where my roots are from. My great grandparents came from Quebec, and actually I can trace my roots to Quebec back to 1634, and so that place as a place for her origins was a natural fit. She lives on the Isle of Orleans, or Isle of Orleans, and I probably screwed that up. Anybody who speaks French, I
Sounded great to me.
I'm 98% French and 2% Native American, but I'm terrible at the language, much to my grandmother's chagrin. In any event, so I have her. She was one of the only women to make it into Canada's Special Forces, Joint Task Force 2. She served in Afghanistan, and because of her leadership and what she did in Afghanistan, she got the CIA's attention. They recruited her, offered her dual citizenship so that she could now have access to top secret information. And I happen to make her an artist as well. The idea of the warrior artist kind of goes back to ancient Japan. Samurai were skilled warriors, but they also wrote poetry and they also painted. There's this wonderful balance in I think in a warrior who isn't just all savage, right? So in her case, she's the painter. I put her in Boston. I put her in an area where my studio for 12 years was, with that setting. And the storyline follows that they catch wind of a domestic terrorist group. There's something in the air about Boston being a target. So she and her team, she actually leads or is a co-leader of the Boston's Homeland security folks. There's a team set up in Boston, and she's a co-leader of that. And so basically the narrative is kind of following, I'll let you have to unpack it. It does start with a practice run for shooting a missile and destroying an oil tanker in Wisconsin, off the coast of Wisconsin. And that was, again, practice for what is a second and then third phase of destruction. And there's a political reason for that. There's a senator with an agenda that requires another kind of 9/11 event to take place in order for what he's proposing and the bill that he is developing and is moving through Congress. It also has sort of a secret agenda in it that gives him in particular specific power.
So, Richard, who would you say this book is for? Maybe age-wise and also audience-wise. Who are you kind of focused on as a reader?
If you like Tom Clancy thrillers, if you like, Follett, I'm a big fan of Louise Penny, who writes the Gamache mysteries. Uh, I love the way she paints characters and gives the interior lives of folks. And she's just is wonderful use of the English language. If you like thrillers, with political thrillers with lots of action, I had a friend of mine read it who, in his review, said, I couldn't put it down. I tend to not really like violence, but in spite of that, I couldn't put it down anyway, and had to had to read it anyhow. So there's if you like a good thriller, this I think feeds the need. And based on some of the reviews I'm getting, I'm actually blown away that what people are saying. Some people compared it to Tom Clancy, said it's very much like Tom Clancy. Someone compared it to another novel. The writers just escapes my mind right now. Another well-known author, has that same kind of intrigue and somebody said it gave him nightmares.
So while you're talking, Richard, I have your reviews up here, and I'm kind of scrolling through here. Some amazing comments from your readers. I want to I like to do this once in a while with my guests. You just call out some of these reviews and have you respond to the reviewer from the author back. Kind of the conversation starts, right? They left a review, and now they hear you address their review. It's kind of like a full circle moment for them, right? So I wanted to read a couple to you just to get your thoughts and maybe a response back to the person who's left you the review.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay. So John K., intriguing terrorist thriller. Lights Out is a well-written thriller that will keep you engaged as the hunt is on to catch the terrorists. The personalities of the main characters are complex, which complicates the relationships. The narrative is organized to keep the action moving and the reader wondering what is next. Looking forward to Richard's next book. That's John K. What do you have any words for John K.?
Well, first of all, thank you, John. I actually, interestingly enough, I know John, and we had a conversation on the side, and he actually said, because he lives and works in Boston, and he sent me a picture outside of his office window of the harbor, right where some of this action takes place. And he says, I'm afraid I'm going to be one of the folks who is harmed. And I assured him no.
Okay, good. All right, so let's do another one. Let's do Bill B. writes a great debut as a title for his review. Lights Out is an amazing story of political intrigue and terrorism that will suck you in and give you nightmares. There it is. I couldn't put it down. I needed to know what happened next. Reminded me of the Pelican Brief.
That's the
There you go. Yeah, in terms of intrigue and terror, needs to be a movie. He's like yelling at you right here. A tour de force debut novel from Richard. So that's Bill B. Any comments back to Bill?
First of all, again, thank you, Bill. The movie comment, he's not the first to have made that. There have been a couple of folks. And honestly, when I was writing it, it played like a movie in my head. I was seeing all of these scenes, and all of this was because I think for most writers, it's a visual process. You're seeing these things and you're enabled to describe what you're seeing in words. It's certainly true for me as a painter. I think visually, I kind of operate visually. So the idea of it being a movie, I'm like, yeah, let's talk to Hollywood. And yeah, it reads quickly, it's fast paced, and that is honestly the way I wrote it. things were moving quickly. It just poured out of me. And I was delighted for that experience. And what I've discovered as a writer is if I'm not feeling it, the reader's not going to feel it. I got to feel it. I have to. Sometimes I find myself teary, right? Sometimes I find myself, just blown away, excited, whatever's going on. I'm feeling those emotions as I write them. And I've discovered that if I'm feeling it, the reader's going to feel it. If I'm not feeling it, if I'm not moved by what I've written, then no one else is going to be either, right? That's probably another good note for writers. You're saying something. I think you're writing something maybe because you think it needs to be there. But if it's flat, if it's just kind of not moving the storyline along, or not moving the narrative along, or the character's arc along, you might want to rethink it. Because if you're not feeling it, your reader isn't going to feel it.
In the process of writing the book, Richard, was there ever a part for you where you got stuck, or you didn't know what to do next, and you were kind of like had to take a moment to reorganize your thoughts? And you kind of mentioned a little bit about your characters kind of leading you a little bit in the process, but was there a part in this at all where you're just like, I don't know where to go next?
If I didn't know where to go next, actually, there were lots of sections where it was sort of unknown. But I could sort of, by what happened prior and where I wanted it to go in the end, I was able to kind of move that through. Again, that's part of the process, right? Especially for me, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not a big bullet by bullet outline writer for novels. I will say that sometimes what I wrote, and in that moment, I'm like, okay, now I have to go back and set this up. How would I do that? Well, somebody should say this, or maybe this should happen, so that now this makes sense. So that's part of the process too, is as you're moving the narrative along and you want this to happen next, it's like, okay, I got to drop something in earlier that kind of sort of hints at this, or would make this a logical thing to happen next. So there was a bit of a structural sort of like, sometimes I view writing as sort of like building blocks, right? And there's almost a structural thing that happens in my head, right? It's like, well, if I'm building this, then I've got to put this underneath it, and then I can put this on top of that, and then this on top of that. There's a sense of structure that's almost 3-dimensional to me sometimes.
Okay, yeah, because I'm picturing that, and every single step in that process matters. It's like I think back, like, you have 12 steps to take you from the main level to the upstairs of your house. What step's the most important? Well, they all are. Like, without the first one, there wouldn't be the 12th one. So every step matters, right? So you kind of have to go through all those steps to get to the finish line.
Exactly. And then I'll say that after it's done and you think, oh, this is great, you have to go back in and have to go back in. I would say I went back into the whole manuscript probably, I don't know, 10, 12 times from beginning to end. And each time I would, as I'm going through it, I'm like, oh, let's add this. It adds a little bit more color. Or this person should say this instead, or in addition to that, right? And in each time you going through, it really is, as any writer will tell you, the writing is really the rewriting. It's the polishing. That's what really makes it shine and sparkle. And I will caution, particularly a new writer who feels that it's done, it's complete, it's finished. I'm going to send it off. Don't. Don't.
Right.
Go through it at least one more time. And you might want to go through it, leaving some time between each edit. Because if you give yourself some time, step away from the work, and I find this is actually true for painting too. If I'm stuck in either the writing or the painting, I leave it alone. Come back to it again with fresh eyes. You can see things you didn't see before. And this is especially true for writing. So really resist that temptation to send it out because you're really excited. There is an emotional, you are just like, this is good. This is ready to go. I can't wait to show it to the world. Resist that temptation.
Right.
To actually get a professional editor to look at it before you actually send it anywhere. And there are a lot of great ones out there. Some of them are extremely affordable. And just kind of do some digging and looking and see. Or if you've got a friend, you happen to have a friend who's an editor. It helps. I got some initial notes, my very first draft from an old friend. She and I have worked together with some clients. And her first note to me was, "You've fallen in love with your protagonist, haven't you?" She goes, "She's too perfect. You have to give her some flaws." You know what? You're right. She is too perfect. So I actually, went back in and gave her some emotional flaws and some physical flaws and I think that was probably the best note that I got.
That's unique. That's very unique. I like that.
Yes. So now, I think as a character, she's more identifiable. She's more, relatable. And I think, I actually give her credit in the book for that in the acknowledgments. She's also the first person who said out loud, "You're a novelist," which I find a very welcome and moving gift for her. So
it's almost on par with "Congratulations, you're a dad."
Yeah.
For the first time, and you hear those words and you go, "Oh, you're talking to me." Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm a dad. Yeah, you're a dad. Like, congratulations, you're the baby. Like, you've created something, right? And there's life, and there's something special out in the world now, which is amazing. So that's pretty cool.
It really is. It really is a gift, honestly. The talent, the skill, I still feel that's a gift. I mean, I put the work in, but honestly, and I think any honest, great person will tell you, sometimes you just have no idea where some of this stuff comes from, and to me, that's the gift.
Nice. It's amazing. So again, Rich, I'm so glad I have a copy of this, and if I can keep it out of my wife's hands long enough, I'll get through it all, and I'm loving it so far. And the reviews the reviews reinforce what I'm seeing already in this book, Richard, that I echo these words that we've been reading on Amazon about your book. It's an amazing thing, and I love the fact that you have created this for us and that you have more plans for us in the future as readers to fall in love with more of your work. Tell us about your website, Richard, and then I got one more question wrapping up our conversation. I could talk to you all day, but I know you got painting to do and writing too. Tell us about your website so we can send people there, and they'll wrap up with that last question.
It's richarddeveau.com, RichardDeveau.com. Right now, the website is all about the book, and you can actually it'll link you to the Amazon page there as well. What I've done is put in some of the reviews. I have 15 1-minute videos that I'm reading 1-minute sections of the book, and it has some AI images in the background that are just kind of there to hold your eye, but I'm actually reading 1-minute sections. There are 15 of those, and so you get little. For those who are, I've had somebody say to me, I really don't read. Let me know when the audio version is out. This is a little bit of that. You get a little taste. And the reason it's a minute is that tends to be, I think TikTok drives a lot of this 1-minute videos. People can, hold you. You should be able to hold somebody's attention for at least a minute. And also for me, having come from the advertising background, writing 1-minute commercials, particularly radio spots. TV commercials are now 30 at the most, 15, 10. So I'm used to kind of squeezing in a lot in a little space. In this case, it was easier. I'd pick a section. I started right at the beginning and then skipped around a little bit because there was sections that made a better minute than others, right? So that's where the book is currently, and at some point I will have my copywriting stuff in there and my painting stuff in that site. So it'll all be housed in one. That's in progress right now.
Excellent. As we wrap up, Richard, the name of the podcast is Living the Next Chapter. So I kind of use that as one of my questions time to time. You did mention that you are working on new projects for your authorship and all that, which is exciting. I'm going to leave it wide open. It can be about your books in the future. It can be whatever you want. But how, Richard, are you living your next?
I have actually finished the second novel.
Nice.
In the first, it's complete, but there's a little something that's left undiscovered or needing to know. I have solved that in the second novel. You also get to know Eve a lot better, some background, some of her experiences, some of the folks that she served in Afghanistan with, some of her Afghanistan experiences, and it too, that's complete. I really want to make Eve Tiant a series. So this is the second of the series. I'm not sure where I'm going to go next, but I'm now in the process of polishing that second book. So that's where I'm going next.
And then it'll become a movie series, and you'll be a famous Hollywood director.
From your lips.
And you won't have time for some little guy in Canada saying, "Please, Richard, come back."
From your lips to God's ears, Dave.
There you go. It would be a dream to come true. I think it's great. I love when authors write visually, kind of saying, if this could be on a screen, what would this look like? I think that shows in how you approach how you write as well. It comes through as a reader. I can see it. So that's
wonderful.
Great.
Thank you for the compliment. I'm still kind of bowled over. I haven't let it go to my head because I've been there before.
Yeah. Well, keep moving forward with it, Richard. You have a gift, and I love meeting authors who are passionate about what they do and how they find their next chapter. And it's exciting to kind of land somewhere you didn't quite expect and see success and great feedback from the people who have left reviews for you. And that's my encouragement to the people listening. When you buy your copy, here again in my hand, of Lights Out, you're going to leave an amazing review, which I'm going to do as well, Richard, because I want people to see more than great book, great author. That's nice. I want you to do something a little bit more for Richard when you leave your review and tell them why you love the book. Because when people see your review, that could be a purchase decision for them as they look at it and go, wow, that person really loved that book. And they gave me some really good reasons why. So not only is this a great book for me, but it's a great book for someone that I know. So I'm going to buy 2 books. I'm not just going to buy 1. So that's my point, is I'm encouraging everyone listening that when you buy Richard's book, you leave a great review.
Well, thank you so much, David. I'm humbled. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm honored to be your guest and looking forward to doing this again.
You're going to come back. You're going to come back. That's your motivation to keep writing.
There you go.
Richard. I love it. Awesome. Everybody, all the information is always in the show notes for Richard. Go there and click all the links. And you'll also soon on his website be able to see all of his amazing artwork. It's going to be moving over to his main page. So go fall in love with some amazing art as well. Richard, again, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
You're very welcome, David. And thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here for the Living the Next Chapter podcast. So glad to have you as part of our family of listeners. There's a seat for you just here on Living the Next Chapter, and I'm so happy that you have listened to all the way to the end. Wow, you are now my new bestie. I want to let you know that I host 7 other podcasts on top of Living the Next Chapter. Yep, 8 total. One of them is called the How To Podcast series. If you are thinking, you know what, Dave, this podcast thing seems like a lot of fun, well, I'll give you a secret. It is. It's a great, amazing, fun time where you can get to meet great people, get your word out there, promote your book, promote what your coaching program, whatever you're doing. Podcasting is great. And if you want to learn how to do this, what you're hearing right now, head over to howtopodcast.ca and look up the How to Podcast series on YouTube, whatever app you're listening on. You'll find me there. And I'd love for you to come listen to how to do this. And if you're interested and have questions on how to podcast, reach out to me at howtopodcast.ca. Thank you for listening. Talk soon.